Remember the America they sold us in history class? You know the one. It was all about soaring eagles, brave Minutemen, and Thomas Jefferson staying up late, probably fueled by an unhealthy amount of lukewarm tea, scribbling down lofty ideals about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That version of freedom felt important, it felt sacred. It was the idea that you could build a life on your own terms, speak your mind without a government goon knocking on your door, and be the master of your own destiny. It was a powerful, intoxicating promise, the kind of thing you'd print on a t-shirt and sell next to a hot dog stand. It was the foundational myth of a nation, a story whispered from one generation to the next. But let's be honest, if you look around today, on this glorious June day in 2025, that feeling is a bit different. It feels less like a soaring eagle, and more like a pigeon trapped in a shopping mall food court. The grand open prairie of American liberty now feels suspiciously like a meticulously landscaped corporate campus, with very specific rules about where you can park, what you can say, and how much debt you need to accumulate just to get a visitor's pass. The powerful promise has been replaced by a dense user agreement written in tiny font, which you implicitly agree to just by being born here. It's a classic bait and switch, a national timeshare presentation where the free weekend getaway turns out to have a lot of hidden fees. Instead of a government of the people, by the people, for the people, it increasingly feels like a government of the lobbyists, by the donors, for the shareholders. The sacred ideals have been shrink-wrapped, monetized, and sold to the highest bidder. The very concept of freedom has been co-opted to mean the freedom to choose between 3 different telecom giants who will all overcharge you for mediocre service. It's the freedom to be exploited by one of 2 political parties, both of which seem to be taking notes from the same billionaire's playbook. This isn't the expansive, revolutionary freedom Jefferson wrote about. This is Freedom Light Trademark, a subscription service with a terrible cancellation policy. This creeping sense of confinement isn't a bug, it's a feature. The powerful and the wealthy have learned that real, messy, unpredictable freedom is bad for business. It's much easier to manage a population that feels just free enough not to revolt, but not so free that they start demanding inconvenient things like a living wage or affordable healthcare. They've constructed a beautiful, gilded cage and have spent decades convincing us it's a penthouse suite. They've replaced the substance of liberty with its symbols, hoping we'll be so distracted by the fireworks and the flags that we won't notice the bars on the windows. And for a long time, it has worked disturbingly well. Every 2 to 4 years, America performs its grand ritual of democracy. It's a spectacular show. There are debates, rallies, and an absolutely breathtaking amount of baby kissing. We're told our vote is our voice, the most powerful tool we have, and in theory, that's beautiful. But in practice, our political choices often feel like choosing between 2 different flavors of vanilla yogurt that were both manufactured in the same factory. A factory owned by a massive conglomerate that also happens to own the news channel, telling you how different the yogurts are. It's the illusion of choice, a carefully curated menu where every option ultimately benefits the house. The machine that drives this illusion is fueled by one thing: money. Obscene, staggering, mind-boggling amounts of it. Political campaigns are no longer about ideas, they're about fundraising totals. Candidates spend more time dialing for dollars in sad little call centers than they do talking to actual voters. This system ensures that anyone with a radical idea, like say that billionaires should pay taxes, is drowned out by a tsunami of attack ads funded by people who very much enjoy not paying taxes. It's not a marketplace of ideas, it's an auction, and the policies go to the wealthiest bidder, leaving the rest of us with a complimentary pen and a sense of profound disappointment. And who helps sell this charade? Our dear friends in the media, of course. News has become a 24/7 cage match, where political discourse is reduced to shouting matches between paid pundits. The goal isn't to inform, it's to enrage, to entertain, to keep you glued to the screen through the next commercial break for a reverse mortgage. Complex issues are flattened into simple tribal narratives: red versus blue, us versus them. This constant conflict distracts us from the fact that on the big issues like deregulation, corporate tax cuts, and a foreign policy that seems to really like blowing things up, both sides are often reading from a remarkably similar script. As a result, many Americans feel politically homeless. They look at the ballot and see a reflection not of their hopes or their struggles, but of a system that has been completely captured by money and power. It breeds a deep, corrosive cynicism. Why bother participating in a game that feels rigged? And that right there is the goal. A disengaged, disillusioned populace is a compliant one. They want you to believe that your voice doesn't matter, that change is impossible, so you'll just go back to binge-watching TV and leave the important business of running the world to them. It's the most effective form of control there is. The First Amendment is America's rock star. It's the one everyone knows, the one that gets all the attention. Freedom of speech, the right to protest, it sounds magnificent. You can stand on a street corner and say whatever you want about the government. But try organizing a protest that genuinely threatens a powerful corporate or political interest, and you'll discover the unwritten footnotes to that amendment very quickly. Suddenly you're met with a maze of permit requirements, designated free speech zones conveniently located miles from anyone who might hear you, and a police presence that looks like it's preparing for an alien invasion. We've seen this time and time again, from the civil rights marches of the 1960s to the Occupy Wall Street movement and the Black Lives Matter protests. Those who challenge the status quo are often met not with dialogue, but with riot gear, tear gas, and mass arrests. The narrative is quickly twisted. Protesters fighting for justice are rebranded as violent thugs. Whistleblowers who expose government wrongdoing are prosecuted as traitors. The message is clear. You are free to speak, but if you speak too loudly or too effectively about the things that really matter, there will be consequences. Your freedom of speech is protected, right up until the moment it becomes inconvenient for those in power. Then, there's the subtler, more insidious way speech is controlled, through fear and surveillance. In the age of the internet, every click, every search, and every private message can be monitored. The revelations of mass government surveillance programs showed us that the idea of a private conversation is becoming a quaint, historical artifact. This creates a chilling effect. People begin to self-censor, afraid that an errant keyword or a problematic opinion could land them on a list somewhere, affecting their ability to get a job, board a plane, or simply live their life without harassment. Trust, the essential glue of a free society, is replaced by a constant, low-level paranoia. This culture of fear is a powerful tool of control. The government and the media constantly bombard us with threats. Terrorists, immigrants, crime waves, a new moral panic every week, to keep us anxious and afraid. A fearful population is an easily manipulated one. They are more willing to trade their liberties for the illusion of security. They are more likely to support aggressive policing, expanded surveillance, and endless wars. They want us to be afraid of our neighbors, not of the systems that are actually stripping away our rights and our wealth. It's a classic magician's trick. Look at the scary thing over here, while my other hand quietly picks your pocket. For millions of Americans, the most immediate cage isn't made of iron bars, but of spreadsheets and bank statements. We are told that America is the land of opportunity, where hard work gets you ahead. But for a growing number, it feels more like a land of inescapable debt. Young people are shackled with student loans so massive they feel like a life sentence, a punishment for the crime of wanting an education. Families are one medical emergency away from bankruptcy, terrified of getting sick because the cost of care is so catastrophically high. This isn't a system designed for prosperity, it's a system designed for extraction. Work itself has become a new form of bondage. The decline of unions, the rise of the gig economy, and decades of wage stagnation have left many workers with little power and even less security. People are working longer hours, often juggling multiple jobs just to keep their heads above water. This constant grinding struggle for survival is exhausting. It leaves no time or energy for civic engagement, for community building, for questioning the systems that created this mess in the first place. An overworked, underpaid, and exhausted population is in no position to start a revolution. They're too busy trying to figure out how to pay next month's rent. Patriotism, a concept that should be about celebrating the nation's highest ideals, is often weaponized to silence dissent. If you criticize American foreign policy, you're told you don't support the troops. If you point out systemic racism, you're accused of hating America. It's a cynical and effective tactic. The flag is draped over injustice like a shroud, and anyone who tries to peek underneath is branded a heretic. This turns patriotism into an instrument of conformity, a demand for blind loyalty, rather than a commitment to the difficult, ongoing work of making the country better. Real patriotism isn't about ignoring your country's flaws. It's about loving it enough to fix them. This economic and social control is a far cry from the liberty our history books celebrate. Think of the real heroes of American freedom. Thomas Jefferson, for all his profound flaws, knew that freedom required a little rebellion now and then. Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass knew that true freedom meant dismantling an entire economic and social order built on human bondage. They understood that freedom isn't a gift handed down from on high. It is something that must be demanded, fought for, and seized by those who are denied it. They questioned authority not because they hated America, but because they believed in its promise enough to demand that it live up to it. So here we are, trapped in a system that feels less like a vibrant democracy and more like a company town. We are managed by fear, controlled by debt, and distracted by a political theater that offers the illusion of choice while changing nothing of substance. The grand promise of American freedom feels like a distant echo. It's easy to feel hopeless, to think that the cage is too strong and the forces against us are too powerful. But that is exactly what they want you to feel. Despair is the final lock on the cage door, and it is the one thing we cannot afford to give them. The first step to reclaiming freedom is to remember what it actually is. It is not the right to buy whatever you want, or the license to ignore the needs of your community. Real freedom is the power to have a say in the decisions that shape your life. It's the economic security to live with dignity, not in constant fear. It is the ability to speak truth to power without being crushed. It is the collective right of a community to determine its own future. It's messy, it's difficult, and it requires constant vigilance. It is not a product to be consumed, it is a muscle that must be exercised. Rebuilding this freedom won't happen by waiting for a better candidate to save us. It won't come from a clever tweet or a viral video. It will be rebuilt from the ground up, in our own communities. It looks like organizing for better wages at your workplace. It looks like forming a tenants union to fight against a slumlord. It looks like showing up to a city council meeting to demand better schools or cleaner water. It looks like creating mutual aid networks to support your neighbors when the system fails them. It's the slow, unglamorous, and absolutely essential work of people coming together to reclaim their power. The American experiment is, and always has been, a fight. It is a battle between the promise of liberty and the reality of power. The forces of money and control have had a very long, very successful run, but they are not invincible. Their greatest fear is a population that is educated, organized, and unwilling to be afraid any longer. We have to remember the legacy of those who fought before us. The abolitionists, the suffragettes, the labor organizers, who faced down impossible odds. It's our turn now. We must remember what real freedom feels like, reclaim it from those who have stolen it, and start rebuilding it together, right where we are.